if there is any water that if there is any build up of water there in that section. All right. So then we have to start looking at the wall itself on top. Okay, so the sand could be coloured in yellow and so on. All right, so the build up of the wall is next. Right, so we have our external wall, that's grand and handy, that's straightforward. But then we'll have to look at our timber frame. Okay, so your timber frame will be 200 wide, so it'll be 200 wide there. Bring a line up. You'll have a double sole plate, so the sole plate is 50 and 50, so 5 and 5. Right, there's your cross to show that you're using timber. Okay, and then we're looking at building up the wall until we get up to the windowsill. Alright, so I think right now should be the time that we look at putting in this windowsill, so we know what we're building up to. Alright, so just because that's the block I finished off on, that's the block I'm going to add my windowsill onto. Right, so windowsill varies in sizes. I wouldn't get particularly bogged down on it. Alright, so inside of that inner leaf there, I'm going to put in my windowsill. Alright, so I'm going to let it sit in about 8 mil into the cavity, and I'm going to let it out the rest. I'm just going to make it 30 mil long in total. Alright, don't get completely bogged down on the sizes of your windowsill, right? Because as I said, it varies from company to company or wherever you get them. Alright, so don't be stressing over that. So put that up there. You have your little section at the front, which could be 5 high. Don't forget about one of the most important details when you are drawing it, is your drip at the front. Okay, remember I've asked you to check that before at home. Seeing as you're at home now, you might be able to get out and just put your hand underneath the windowsill and actually see that it's there, that I'm not just making it up. And then we'll come back 5 there. We need to drop it down, so that's where our window frame is going to sit in, and then we have to have our slope. Right, so we have a slope on the windowsill because the rain hits off the window and it has to go somewhere. Okay, so the rain hits off the window, it comes down, you want it to roll away, it comes down around the windowsill, hits the drip and drops down. Alright, so now what else can we add in? So one other important detail then before we carry on, I suppose, is we have Dpc wrapped around the window here, around the windowsill, sorry. Comes out and then turns down there. Right, so any kind of break in the structure will have Dpc wrapped around it, or somewhere in it, close to it. Then we can put on our external render. External render comes down here. It comes down to this first block. There's what's called a plinth. Right, so the plinth again is designed to try and deter or redirect the water away from the building. Where you'd see it most at home, you'd have different colour paints just underneath that. Okay, so that's your external render put on there. So then we need to work on the timber frame. Right, so just getting the timber frame finished, and we have the drawing or this drawing completed. So detailing for this. So we have our timber frame wall coming up here. So we're just going to put that at the same height now as the windowsill. So I'm going to work a little bit down now in this case. Right, so you would be trying to put cavity closing insulation on top of this. Right, so it would be 50 mil in thickness. Okay, so it closes off all of this. So rigid insulation put in there. On top of that, you would have, just like the timber used for the sole plate, you would put in timber here. Like that has to be supported, right? Because there might be stuff left on top of it. All right, so that's the main structure of your timber frame completed. All right, so there we can put in our insulation then into this. So our quilted insulation will be put inside of this wall. So our quilted insulation is there. Then what do we have? We have a 50mm wood fibre board, which is put on the inside here. So 50mm, which is put on there. Be brought right the way up to sit underneath that windowsill. So put all the way up to there. So your wood fibre board, that is. Then you would have a small bit of rigid insulation put in behind the windowsill. Again, all preventing this thermal ridging from occurring. Then we have another cavity closing here, which would be 50mm also. Alright, so you're just trying to eliminate all possible risks, I suppose. Okay, so that's put in there, and then you have what's called an anchor strap that's put in, which is your equivalent of a wall plate. It's put in, connecting the timber frame to the outer leaf, which is quite important. Right, so you have a link there, so that's your anchor strap put in. Right, so it's like a wall tie, except it's for a timber frame. So it's put in there. That's called your anchor strap. Alright, so now we almost have that completed. Then we have to look at just the internal part of the wall here. Alright, so we have 18mm sheeting, which is there, which was already kind of accounted for just with our drawing. Alright, so that's 18mm sheet material. Then we have 50mm of insulation, or 50mm of a service cavity put on the inside. So 50mm insulation or service cavity, whatever you want to call it. Let's bring that right up to there. And then you have, on the outside of that, you have 12mm plasterboard and a skim finish. So put on the outside of that. Okay, so bring that right the way up to there as well. Alright, so then we could put on the window there and the window board, but we're not going to do that. So just other important detail, and then in this question would be your air tightness tape. So your air tightness tape would run here. It kind of seals that junction between the wall and the floor now, right, which is fairly important. Then you would have air tightness tape running across the top here. Alright, and it would kind of go in around the window frame itself, or the window frame would sit in on top of it. Okay, so that would be that sealed. Your skim and all these layers here would seal that, and then this is just your other junction problem. And then, you know, other things you could add in as well. You could put in your flooring, so that could be your flooring, and then you could add in your skirting board profile if you wanted to as well. Alright, so your tongue and groove flooring. Or in most cases, they'll actually tell you what desired finish they're looking for. in the question, so just make sure you put in the finish that's asked of you. Alright, you don't want to be putting in something that's not required. Then just other small little bits of detail would be your vapor check. Okay, so your vapor check goes on connected onto that timber frame, so your vapor check goes there, and then you have a breather membrane. So the breather membrane is put on the outside of that wood fibre board to allow air to get in at your structure. Alright, so that would be that drawn. It's a combination of two. Alright, like I said, we could add on the window frame up here just for a small bit. You will be given a desired size for that as well if you were required to do that in a question. Alright, so there's quite a bit of detail in the question. There's this section here should be revision, and even included this, and then this is probably the trickiest part of here. Even if you could get up to there, you know, you're looking at 70% of the question.